Okay, we're back and picking it up with part three. Excuse me, passwords and authentication. So we've already learned that the weakest security link in the network is the authorized user, I believe. So unfortunately, this link is the most difficult to secure, and companies should take steps to address this vulnerability with policy and with tools such as complex passwords, not using dictionary names, using more than 8 characters, using a mixture of letters and numbers and symbols, having a min password, a max password, and recording password history so that passwords can't be used. These are some of the rules that you might want to use as a security tester to recommend to any company that you are working with, right? In addition to user accounts, right, passwords can be applied to a lot of areas. Another one would be um, to service accounts on servers, for example. So even administrator passwords. So an individual can have a username password and an administrator separate password authentication. And an administrator should only use their that account when they're doing administrator duties. They should not use the administrator account when they are doing normal user duties as an employee. So administrators, they can configure domain controllers, for example, to enforce password age and length complexity. It's one of the things you want to do. You'd want to use the domain controllers to build account lockout thresholds, right? So if I try to load my username password 3 times, for example, the account gets disabled for maybe 30 minutes or so. Or maybe just to reset it. You have to reset it, and you want to look at the account lockout duration, the time the users is locked out. For example, would you always want to have a 30-minute lockout period? Probably not. What if you set all administrator accounts to a 30-minute lockout for failed logins? Well, once you change somebody's admin account, if you could do privileged escalation, you could actually cause a denial of service by then going in and changing other account passwords, and none of these administrators would be able to get on to solve the problem. So, despite the best efforts to promote security by enforcing password policy, it's really still entirely possible the passwords can be cracked using a rainbow table, for example. Another note about administrator passwords, I know once an administrator created a simple common password on a server because they were doing some remote maintenance from home and had to keep going back into it. And this should never be done. On a server, the passwords should be extraordinarily complex. And what happened was that a hacker had figured out what the password was and had gotten into the system. So it can happen. You want to be very careful. Um, and and now transitioning though, there are tools for identifying these vulnerabilities in Windows. So many tools are available for discovering these Windows vulnerabilities and to do analysis. Popular OS vulnerability scanners, for example, include Tripwire, Nessus, we've talked about, OpenVAS, we've talked about, and Qualys Guard, just to name a few. And there's a little more on that in the reading, and you can do some additional research yourself. There has been in the past previously built-in tools like MBSA, but again, that's no longer supported. The book does mention it in Activity 8.8-1 and page 210, but it isn't applicable any longer. If you go there to the download, it'll produce a 404 error code. and it's no longer going to be developed. I think it was a really useful tool, not just for patch compliance, but also looking at issues like file share permissions, etc. But there's some good news out there. A list of best alternatives to MBSA can be found that you can use as a security tester. You would want to do your own research. But some of the best are the Preisler PRTG Network Monitor, right? It's a bundle of network, server, and application monitoring tools that includes system security scanning features. You can detect intruders and spot vulnerabilities real time with real-time scanning, and you can even get a free 30-day trial with it if you download it. SolarWinds usually is recommended. It also comes with a free trial. It's an engineer's tool set that includes a security event manager, a patch manager, user device tracker, etc., to help us tighten up our security systems. Now, SolarWinds was in the news for a patch that went wrong, and it was hacked in a government system in late 2020, early 2021. OpenVAS we've talked about. That's an open source free vulnerability detection system. Nessus we've talked about in previous chapters. An open version, this vulnerability scanner, it really is available online or for installation on-prem if you want. NexPose, Nexpose is another one. It integrates with Metasploit for a comprehensive vulnerability sweep, and Retina CS would be another. So those are some options besides the Microsoft Baseline Security Analyzer, no longer available. Now, although security problems exist in all computer systems, many attacks can be avoided with that sort of careful system analysis and maintenance. And as a security tester, we want to recommend that to companies, right? And so one of the things you'd want to do is update your scheme to reviewing log files as for signs of unusual activity. So when Microsoft learns of a problem or vulnerabilities in its software, it usually publishes patches which can come in the form of security updates or service packs or even hot fixes if it has to happen right now. So you would want to look for those. And there are some other built-in tools listed in the readings this week. I'll just ask you to review those in the book. And again, MBSA no longer available, but I mentioned other tools that can do these very same functions. That's why I leave this slide in here. These same functions are done by those other tools. And again, any computer system meeting the system requirements shown in Table 8.3 can scan another computer or be scanned locally or remotely. So be aware of that as a security tester. Now, there are some best practices for hardening. Hardening is very important. I am big on hardening. As a pen tester, your job is to find vulnerabilities and report them as defined in your contract. That's a foot stomper again. We've said that throughout this whole course. Your job as a pen tester, as a security tester, is to find vulnerabilities and report them as defined in your contract. So you want to be familiar with the methods of correcting them. Hardening is a good method to do that. Typically, managers that we work for want solutions included in their reports, right? Because we don't want to lock out computer networks of a company to keep them secure. It's not the best option for being vigilant. So a security breach is only one undiscovered vulnerability away, right? That's a common saying. A security breach is only one undiscovered vulnerability away. So be careful with our management tools and our approach. Now, hardening has many steps. We can disable unnecessary accounts, right? This is reducing the attack surface. We can protect management interfaces and applications, implement password protections, disable unnecessary ports, do patch management, implement least functionality or least access, implement whitelisting or blacklisting is another approach to hardening, right? Unneeded services and protocols can easily give hackers access to our servers and our machines. A port scanner can identify which services or protocols are running. We've talked about that. So that you can disable any of the unnecessary services or protocols, okay? When it comes to patching addresses specific OS defects. So we want to keep the system that's under your care up to date. As noted, many attacks take advantage of a known vulnerability as the patch is available. We mentioned Conficker, right? And how the patch was out, but the vulnerability was still exploited because it had not been patched in other systems. So if you only have a few computers to maintain, maybe 10 or fewer, you can do Windows updates manually for each computer. That can work fine. Automatic updates are really recommended for a large network, right? You want automatic updates. And so Windows Software Update Service, WSUS, this is a client server that you can get. It's the client server technology designed to manage patching and updating system software from the network. And so instead of downloading updates to each computer, WSUS, or Windows Software Update Service, that server, is going to download patches and publish them internally to servers and desktops for you. And the administrator has control over which updates are deployed. And the feature has many advantages. Considering that some updates can cause problems, you get to control it. In 2007, Windows System Center Configuration Manager, SCCM, became a new standard to help managers deploy and manage servers alongside this patch management functionality of WSUS. SCCM even allows for administrators to control mobile devices. You can also use third-party patch management solutions like BigFix, Tanium, BladeLogic are out there. Whatever patch management tools you use, remember that keeping the system of today patched is one of the most critical things you can do to secure a system. Now, antivirus is also very important. This is probably the #1 protection I want on my computer or server. The #1 thing you should do always. I use a commercial service on my home computers, but you really want to. Symantec and McAfee are popular among many. Now, antivirus products and the anti-malware products that encompass them, they provide notifications when the threat has been detected and what action should be taken, right? And on many occasions, the software will identify the potential threat and prompt you to take action. It's only part of the solution. It's not the only solution, though, but it is really absolutely essential. Now, logging is also essential, right? So we want to enable logging and review logs regularly. We want to enable logging and we want to configure to record only useful statistics. Some people say log everything. No, not from a security perspective at least. I want to log not all Windows events codes because I would have terabytes of data in a big company. I want to log the 4 or 5 key Windows events codes like failed logins or repeat attempts to log in, things like that, things that point me to a security issue out there. Okay, we will come back with disabling unused services and ports.